Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Meta Performance Podcast, where we bring stories of high performers getting after in all aspects of work, sport, and life. And today I am delighted to bring to you all Marilyn Shields. I think she is one of the most remarkable people, humans, women I have ever met in my life. And you all will see through this conversation exactly why that is. Marilyn and I met through the sport of running, which we will definitely talk about, but she is also an esteemed lawyer and just does so much good for our community here in Pennsylvania and beyond. So with that, I will pass the torch, virtual microphone, over to Marilyn.
Thanks, Holly. So you said my name's Marilyn Shields. I am the executive director for the Pennsylvania Commission for Fairness and Justice. I'm also an assistant solicitor for the city of Bethlehem. And you're right, we met, how long has it been now? Were we at 3 years? Not quite 3 years. Are we 3 years?
I think so, right around.
Can't be that. It feels, I have to check dates. I have my trusty notebook with all my running stuff in it. So I'll have to see when Holly came into my life. But I'm very lucky to have you as a coach and a friend and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, happy to be here.
Yes. And you are also a mom of a teenager and a young child.
They might be, I don't know, they're probably around me somewhere. I have a 15-year-old named Cole, and he is also a runner. And I have a 9-year-old Sage, who hates running with all of her might unless she is playing basketball or at a track meet where she sees other 9-year-olds running. And then I think there could be a little germ of, well, that would be fun. I'm a mom too, and a wife. I do a lot of things.
And also on the board for Kenyon College?
I am on the board of trustees for my alma mater, Kenyon College. I'm also on the board of directors for WDIY, which is one of our local radio stations. Big fan. So I probably do too much. I'm trying to work on that. That's one of my big issues, is just taking on a little bit too much sometimes and trying to really balance it all and get it all done. So,
and that's definitely why we created a platform for individuals like you, right? Because there's so many layers, so much richness, and truly so much capacity in you, right? Like there's the and it is so impressive. And I'm sure you've heard from lots of people, how do you do it? And I'm curious in this conversation, how running and sport allows you to find and discover your best self and helps support all of those other identities that you have.
So I was always an athlete. I played volleyball in high school. I ran track in junior high and high school and in college. So I've always had a bit of this is a thing that I like to do. And for me, it was how I kind of planned my life. Right? If you have a sport that you're into in high school and college, it doesn't leave a ton of other time for mischief, getting into things. It brings discipline to your life in a way that I don't think anything else has ever brought discipline into my life. So it was just, I liked it, but it also seemed to help me academically. In fact, I'm pretty sure that when I was out of season, my grades were worse than when I was in season, because it was an organizing principle. It's like, we're going to have practice after school. You're going to get home. It's going to be late, not a lot of hours before you need to go to sleep. So you're really going to use your time well. So I've had that for such a long part of my life, but I didn't do endurance running. That came later. I was a jumper and a sprinter. But what you find out after you leave high school and college is no one's asking me to jump anywhere. I couldn't play volleyball by myself. So what could I do that just relied on me? And that was, well, you can go run. And I'm not going to say that running is a cheap sport or because it is not, but it's something I could do on my own. Whether I had friends or not. And I do have friends, I swear, but I could get that done on my own. That could be an outlet for me. Then, the pandemic came, 2000 came, and then I started kind of leaning into running as a bit of an escape. I became a streaker for a period of time where I was running every single day. And that went on and eventually I stopped not because I got injured or anything like that, but because you, quite frankly, came into my life and we just started talking about, well, is this the best way that you can do this? If you've got goals that you want to achieve, things that you want to do, maybe running every day is not the best way to get there. So it took, it was definitely later in life when I finally started thinking about how to do this in some sort of structured way to maximize how I was doing it as opposed to just doing it every single day because I was really angry about what I read or podcasts that I listened to, kind of putting sport in a different place, I think a healthier place for me.
Mhm.
And then it gets hard because you have kids and family and all that other stuff to add to it. But I'm sorry, I could go on forever about why I run.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a beautiful entry because it gives us a glimpse into the trajectory of sport and how it started and how it's evolved. And what jumped out to me was you mentioned discipline. And when it comes to discipline, right, we can over index and we can go on a streak. Right. So if our listeners aren't familiar, a streaker is what it sounds like, what Marilyn alluded to is basically running every day. Usually there's parameters of at least a mile, or sometimes people use minutes. And it's basically, all weather, all conditions, all days, you go do the thing, you streak. And I'm curious how having discipline on rest and recovery has been a shift for you.
It was so hard at first. And I'm sure you said something along the lines of, when you say no to this, what are you actually saying yes to? And I've honestly filled it with other things. I read a ton of books.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I do when I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. to go and do a workout or lift weights, do a run. I am reading a book or I am studying Spanish. I fill it with something else. And that's kind of how I had to get there. It was never going to be me just sleeping in, um,
Mm-hmm.
because I have found that it just doesn't work for me. I've seen people who can stay up late on one night and then get it back the next day. That is not a sustainable practice for me. I need to have time before anyone else in my house is awake to do a few things that I want to do. And I like to do it uninterrupted. So some days that's running, some days that's reading, some days that's Spanish. But I value that time. And as much as I love sleep, and I truly love sleep more than anyone else in my house, it seems, I would prefer to go to bed early to get what I need because another discipline we've talked about is kind of good hygiene and something that's regular. I thrive on regular. What I do is going to be the same thing every day. My breakfast is not that different
Mm-hmm.
Monday through Friday. I like that routine. So that's how the discipline has shown up for me. It's now I'm not running every day, but I'm doing something for myself every single day.
I love that consistency, having the open mindedness to be willing to make a change, even when it's hard. And oftentimes, when I start working with new clients, regardless of sport or industry, profession, bringing in more rest is always challenging because it directly challenges our ego or, our narrative of more is better. Or if I can, then why not? And it does come at a cost. And I love that you've been able to identify your own characteristics and then the opportunities. If not running, then what? And there's a lot of value in, you know, language exploration and additional reading and probably so much more. And what you were sharing, I think, is getting on the lines of something that may be really interesting for our listeners, which is like a daily habit practice. So you mentioned consistent sleep and kind of getting up at the same time, having some time for yourself in the beginning of your day. What other habits or structures, processes do you feel like allow you to perform at your best consistently?
I have a lot of habits. Let's see. I go to bed at about the same time pretty much every day. Weekends, I have to compromise that a bit because I do have a family and I think they would like to see me and see me in a state that's not just like sleeping on the couch while they're trying to watch something with me. But I do keep my sleep window is about the same, somewhere could be as early as 8. And that's embarrassing to say that as a full grown adult, but or as late as about 10. That's a late night. And then I'm up at if I'm meeting with a LVRR group, that's a 4:30 day, but generally it's 5. And I just get up. Everything has already been set out for the day. I'm a big believer in not having as few obstacles to doing the thing as possible. So the night before, I'm checking to see, okay, this is the workout. How much fuel am I going to need? How much salt am I going to need? What clothes do I need? Like, what's the weather going to be? If I'm in my house, obviously I don't need to worry about it. But then it's going to my room and literally picking out what the outfit's going to be, setting it down, getting the shoes ready, getting the heart monitor so I don't forget it, just putting everything in place. So the only thing I really have to do is get out of bed. I think for a lot of people, the challenge is all the stuff that they have to do that they could have already done the night before that keeps them from getting out the door. So I try to make it as foolproof as possible. And I do that with my reading as well. Today was a rest day. The books that I'm reading right now were sitting in the spot where I go to either sit on the massage mat or sit in the hyper ice. The books are right there. I've got my trusty this is my little light that I take downstairs because I take the little light downstairs. I'm quiet, so I'm not disturbing anyone. And I get in my little, cozy corner, and we're going to go at this I'll have about an hour before the first, pitter patter happens. It's a lot of planning. It sounds probably very boring. I know my son hears me talk about it a lot. It's the one thing I haven't yet been able to get into his little brain, as he is also a runner. There's the panic 15 minutes before we need to get out the door every single time where he's asking me things like, Mom, where's my watch? I don't wear your watch. I don't know where your watch is. Mom, have you seen my gloves? Like, you knew it was going to be 28 degrees outside. Why didn't you? And I have to, gently, because I'm still, gentle mom, and remind him, hey, these things are coming. What are the things that you can do to make it easier for you to get out the door? I don't know if he is as much of a head case as I can be. Missing those things can impact my workout. So if I get partway through, down the street and I realize I don't have my heart monitor, I'm going to be thinking about the fact that, oh no, Holly's not going to get the data that she needs. Maybe I should turn around. Oh no, I forgot my fuel. I don't know. Am I going to make it through this? I don't need it. There's plenty going on in this head without the extra stuff. So part of it is just an awareness of how I do well and understanding that and being okay with it, not trying to change it, but just lean into it and be okay with it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, just so much knowledge about and understanding about who you are and how you show up at your best and what's needed so that you aren't trying to change who you are. You accept who you are, and then you create a process is what I'm really hearing around how you can show up at your best, which is being prepared, being organized, looking ahead so that you can reduce the barriers that we all wake up with, right? The biggest barrier needs to be the alarm clock, right? It doesn't need to be the alarm clock and then what you're wearing and what is the temperature and what am I eating and, how is my body feeling this day? And, I wanted to get this other thing done too. By reducing the barriers or at least shifting them to decision making at a time that has less pressure, you're able to show up at your best and start the day with either some enrichment or a challenge, a physical challenge that is meaningful to you.
And it's not to say that I don't ever mess these things up, and I can get past that. I'm not going to say that every time I've forgotten my heart monitor, it was a terrible workout. No, but I probably spent more time thinking about it and wasted energy on it. And I don't like wasting energy. I don't like wasting my time. I don't like wasting your time. I think it's also a respect for myself and for you to put myself in the best position to do the best job as much as I can control my controllables. And that's a big piece of this is figuring out what I can do something about and what I can't. And, we go from there.
Yes. I often like to say structure sets you free. And for folks that are maybe more type B or kind of more like the wing it or the go with the flow, that definitely doesn't resonate for everybody. But I'm like you. Structure sets me free because I put the structure in place and then it frees up my mind and my mental energy, my capacity to focus on other things because I have this process in place, the structure that I know I just have to step through. So as you're sharing kind of how you go about running, going about balancing all of these aspects for you, how do you personally define performance for you? And I know that this answer may change over time in our life, but what resonates mostly for you now?
I want to be as close to my potential as I can get. I wrote the question down because even though you typed the questions, I needed to write the question myself because again, my process, for me, it's about getting as close to what I'm capable of as possible. And I know I haven't done that yet, but that's what I think. It cannot be a place because quite honestly, I've had first in AG. I've had even first female. They're fine. They're great. Don't get me wrong. I love that stuff, but I can do those things and still feel like I didn't do enough or I didn't maximize my potential.
Hmm.
I don't know that I would have said that 2, 3, 5 years ago. It's not tied up with any one result. It's about really maximizing my performance. And I tend to think that there are certain results that would come, maybe time goals that would come with that, but I can't control who shows up any given day to a race. So it can't be about being the first master or the first woman to, no. Also, we're in a place where there are a lot of really great runners. So I don't necessarily expect that I'm going to show up and be the first woman to do anything. Great if it happens, but it's really about maximizing what I can do in any given moment.
What does that feel like when you feel like you're getting the most out of
Mm,
yourself, when you're really tapping into your potential?
I'm trying to think when I've ever felt that way. I probably would say Ole Valley was pretty close to that. It's not that it doesn't hurt because it does. And for a long time, I thought maybe I'll stop hurting when I run. Somewhere recently, I discovered no, it's always going to hurt, but I care less about that. That's when I know I'm in a good place where I can be suffering and I'm good with it. And
Hmm.
I've I get to a place of acceptance. Like this is part of what I asked for, what I want to do. And my son Cole will say, kind of the embracing the suck. You have to know that it's going to hurt, make your peace with that and be good with that. The times that I've had the best performances is, you know, it is sucking, but I don't really seem to care that much. Maybe it's a bit of a flow state that you get to where you're aware of what's going on. And I'm sure there's some part of my body that would love to just stop, but it's just not gonna stop like until the job is done. You know what that is, right?
Yeah,
You've
yeah,
been
I do.
there.
For sure, for sure. And I love they mentioned flow state because I think that when we're on our potential edge in at work, in sport, whatever the context is, it definitely feels like a flow state where it's the time boundary kind of evaporates and we're so fully immersed and fully present. It's a really beautiful experience. And it is hard to describe if you've never experienced it. But once you have, you exactly know what that is. And it's interesting to say, performance for you is tapping into your potential. And I specifically wanted to ask you what potential feels like because I think that's really challenging. And truly, as a high performer, as lovingly, I refer to you and myself as well as type A
Type A
plus.
plus.
Yeah, right. Because we want to get after it and live a big life. So when we have a question like, what does living at your potential feel like? My next question to you would be, is that even possible?
I think it is, and not for really long periods of time. I don't think it goes for days.
Hmm.
But when we talk about flow state, that also means I'm probably not thinking about any needs of anyone else. I'm not thinking about, and I've run with my son Cole from time to time. I'm not thinking about where he is or how he's doing. I'm not thinking about how my daughter is or how she's doing. I'm not thinking about the tasks that need to be done at home. It feels very selfish in hindsight when I get to those places, but it's all just this thing I'm doing for whatever period of time. That could be 20 minutes, could be an hour and a half or more. It's just that. Do I think it's possible? Sure. Why not? Why not? I mean, look, I'm every day for the last week or so, maybe it's been 2 weeks. My watch has been telling me my fitness age is decreasing. Um, but I also know that, it's not up to Garmin or Strava or anything else to tell me I'm at my potential. I think I'm lucky in that I came to this endurance sport later in life. So I didn't burn out on this at 19, 20, 30. So in my mind, I've got running years ahead of me. And I look at things like Michelle Roll is doing with Greater Philadelphia Track Club, and
Mhm.
she is breaking records in her 60s. Why not? Why couldn't I do that? I think your question was something along the lines of, when you get to your potential. I don't know, but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to find out. And if you don't kind of put yourself out there, you'll never know. And I guess that's okay too, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people get scared of maybe their capacity and how powerful they are or could be if they put in structures and a system that allowed them to perform, if they actually committed to sleeping 8 hours a night or more, if that meant going to bed at 8 or 9, right? And what they would have to give up in the moment. And yes, I mean, I think that the pursuit of potential is always worth it, regardless of outcome, right? Because we can't always control the outcome, but the experience, you've heard me say this before, the experience matters. And that pursuit of potential can be so enriching for so many reasons. And as you mentioned, you're newer to endurance sport. What has endurance sport taught you most about how to live a good life?
Probably that I can't get too caught up in what anyone outside of me thinks or feels about what I'm doing. And we've had this conversation before that, you know, the world will tell me, has told me that in many ways, shapes and forms that I'm not worthy of. This is my opportunity to say, I am worthy of this. I am good enough. If you don't have to spend a lot of time talking to women lawyers, and they will all come to a similar story of a time they've shown up for a deposition or something else and been mistaken for not an attorney that's involved in the process. And I think you know that I ran for judge a number of years ago, and people were more than happy to tell me that I wasn't qualified, that I wasn't smart enough, that anything I did was because DEI, something like that. What this gives me is I can prove it. Like, I don't have to convince someone else of my worth. I'll just go and do the thing and show that I can run this. It's right there on paper. I did it. You can't possibly question that. So it gives me a space where I can just pour my effort into something and know that it's not about anyone else qualifying or confirming that I'm really good at this thing, because I just did it, and that's enough.
That's really powerful. I mean, to an outsider, again, people that don't matter, right? They're going to judge us anyways, whether or not we hear it or not. People are judging us. And for non-athletes or people that can identify with running a distance of any measure, right? They're going to say, what are you running from? Or that we're crazy, right? Any runner that interacts with other people have heard these reactions.
Our knees are all
And
going to fall apart.
yes, don't your knees hurt?
Sometimes if I need new shoes.
Exactly. And what I loved about what you shared is that running gives you a power and a purpose in who you are, and it allows you a channel for you to build your relationship with you. And boy, we are rarely going to get that when we live our lives and interact with the public at large. But how amazing is it to have a sport, a behavior that you can go to that shows you your potential every day?
It does. And it's always there. It shows up day in and day out. There's an opportunity to build towards just proving to myself that I am good and I am worthy, and that hard work does pay off. There are any number of places where you can work really hard and not get the result. I don't think running is one of them. I genuinely don't. It's very hard for me to imagine fluke BQ times. Like that doesn't, not that I'm saying I want to run a marathon, but that doesn't just, you're not just going to show up one day and wing it. And I know there's always like, you're on Instagram, a guy that's like, oh, I'm just going to see if I can show up and you can show up and do it. It's not going to be at your potential, probably not going to be a BQ, mostly because they're like totally lowering the number every year. So you definitely can't do that. But I feel like it can take some time to get there. But if I keep showing up, I'm going to get where I want to go. And I like that. I like the idea that I can just keep showing up and doing the work, and eventually the result will come.
What does it feel like to start your day with such a physical challenge and starting your day doing something that allows you to tap into the potential that you have? And I'll caveat this by saying, I am your coach. We've been working together, and oftentimes your preference is to have your runs very early in the morning, as you've mentioned here, first thing. And what is the advantage to you in overcoming a physical challenge as you then step into the rest of your day?
Often the run, not right now because we're in off season, but often the run is the hardest thing I do during the day. And it gives you this boost of, well, if I can do that, this terrible email that I just received or that I need to respond to, this person who's being, I'm just better at handling anything that comes after that. So I get a call from school, one of the kids is sick, we need to show up. I don't now need to think about, oh my goodness, how am I going to get the workout done that I didn't do? That's off the table. Part of it's like a table clearing that makes the rest of life easier, but it's also a confidence boost. It's just, that was going to be the hard thing. I did that. We threw some weights around. What do you have for me? It cannot be as hard as this, because I woke up, it was 20 degrees outside. The snow was hitting me. We couldn't get into the track because it was snow covered, or the lacrosse guys were at Muhlenberg and we had to do street. Like nothing you do now is going to bother me. It's one of the things I'm trying to work on, is being unflappable in a race setting. But I generally feel like day in, day out, non-race setting, I'm pretty unflappable and I'm pretty even keel, even when it feels like things are falling apart, because I can do hard things. I do them pretty much every day. And even on the days when I'm resting, that's probably hard too. So I can do a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, you're really tapping into why I think sport and endurance sport in particular is so powerful, because you shared that it allows you to see a mirror towards your own potential. It allows you to kind of cut off the noise and focus on just you, which you said, could feel selfish. And I always like to say there's a difference between self-centered and selfish. It's okay to be a little selfish. And then if you start your day with the hard thing, everything else is easier. And life will constantly throw challenges at us, some expected, most unexpected. But if you start your day with a win, then your capacity, and you said confidence, is, unflappable.
Yeah. I'll give
And
you a
that's a
perfect,
powerful combo.
I'll give you an example for today. So today was a rest day, but let's just assume I worked out this morning. My daughter does basketball. The plan was my husband, was going to do basketball practice tonight. I'm not a big nighttime person, hate nighttime driving. He was going to do it. But he has a deposition. He needs to be there. He didn't realize it. He sent me a Marco Polo. Hey, this needs to change. If I had not done the thing that I needed to do this morning, that would be sending me into a tizzy. The whole day at work, I would be trying to figure out, how am I going to flex and get things done so that I can be there for my daughter? Because I'm not going to not take her to practice. I'm not going to ask anyone else to do that. That's part of the beauty of how I've structured life, is that I was ready to say, cool, I'll be there. That's an extra hour of book reading time that I get while Sage is doing this. I turned it into a win right away. No big deal. But I think that's because the hard stuff was already done.
Yeah. I mean, and then it creates a path for more ease and flow the rest of your day.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And I know that we've been working at 2.5, 3-ish, maybe years
I can tell
together
you
now.
what race it was after where we when Gina first called you. Uh, it
St.
was post
Luke's.
St. Luke's half, May. This is 2025, so 2023. I can tell you
Okay.
exactly what it was.
Yes. Okay.
Because
Two
we
and a half.
all bonked. It was too hot. None of us were taking nearly enough fuel. Yeah, that was what it
Doesn't
was.
feel good.
No,
Yes.
it did not feel good. And it was also too hot.
Yes, yes. Does that feel good? And that was, I believe, the first time that you started working with a coach. And I'm curious if you can kind of share a little bit. And this is not like a way for me to get kudos, but how has the process of working with a coach been like for you? And I'm interested in your answer because I feel like a lot of individuals, athletes, or executives feel like they need to qualify to work with a coach. I'm not XYZ elite athlete. Why do I need a coach? Or I'm not, a business owner. Why do I need a coach? So I'm curious if you could share what the benefit has been from your perspective.
Maybe a function of being an attorney and knowing that sometimes clients need someone who understands better than them to guide them through a process. But I do understand that I don't know everything. I'm not an expert in all. I like to think that I could study up on things, but I think humility is a really important thing, and knowing when you don't know everything is really important. And could I get a bunch of Runner's World magazines or read a bunch of things online? And I could try, but it's not my job. It's not my life. I have a job. I have two. I have a family. I have kids. I don't have the capacity to convert myself into an expert on running. I probably also don't have the distance that I need to have to be honest with myself and to give myself grace and space. Because I'm a type A, I'm not always the nicest to myself. And that could very easily spiral into just terrible, terrible self-talk, defeatist attitude, and possibly wearing myself out mentally and physically. So I thought it would be better to find someone, if I could find someone, and I have to give Gina a lot of credit for helping to find you, that I could trust enough to give that piece away a little bit and to trust someone kind of into my world to say, maybe you could do this better. What if we tried this, to really help kind of partner with me to figure out the path forward. So I feel pretty deeply that what is quite honestly missing a lot in our current culture and our current discourse is that humility. And I see it in my job all the time, that ability to say, I don't understand. I could do this better. And here's how I will go about getting better. Everyone wants to pound their chest and say, I alone can fix it. I know everything. And that's just not the case. So I really come to this with, I think honestly, with this idea of humility. You've been doing this longer. You study this. This is your world. Why wouldn't I want to get the benefit of that? Work smarter, not harder, right? So that's how I surrender, understand you don't know everything, and be open, be coachable. And I do think I've always been coachable. I tell people all the time, I get criticism all the time. And that's okay. Like critique, we should not, shrink away from critique. It's there. Hopefully, if it's the right person doing it in the right way, it will make you better. And isn't that what we all want?
Yes, especially someone like you who is so interested and driven towards uncovering your potential. And I think it's just so articulate to say that it starts with humility, right? And recognizing that we're not supposed to be able to do it all on our own. We need our support system. We need our community. We need to work together. We need to be open to feedback, which to me ties into humility, and that there's power in partnership. And I know you mentioned, your tendency to be very hard on yourself. And that's definitely something that we've worked at. And, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. And it's a continual work in process, for myself included, because it's so easy for us to be our own worst critic. And that can really distract us from just having fun and being in that flow state, right? Just being able to enjoy the moment and focus on you and cut the noise and the chatter from, frankly, people that don't matter.
Yeah, I can't help but think, as I was reflecting before this meeting, that so much of how I am is about feeling like I wasn't good enough and that I needed to always prove that I belonged in a space, in a room. And I can even think back to when I was a kid and an article was written in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette about me being the child of a single mother, as if like that was like, how could this kid, the child of a single mother, it's like, I don't know. Yes, my father died when I was quite young, but I was no lesser. And yes, I went to a school that maybe didn't have the most money, but like, have always felt a need to prove and establish and prove and establish. And for every attorney that's ever said something rude or asked me to, quite frankly, do something that you would never ask a male attorney to do, to say, oh, okay, I will use that as fuel for when I beat you in a trial later. We won't say your name here, person I'm thinking of. That has shaped me for better or for worse. I think I've used it for good, but it would not have worked in this particular space, in the running space, if I just use that constantly. It's no way to live. I get enough of that in my 9 to 5 that I don't need that in this thing that I'm choosing to do.
Mhm.
I don't need to bring that sort of energy here. There are places where I've got to do that work because that's just the world. I don't need to do that in sport.
I can see how powerful, again, and important having running is for the balance. And I'm thinking of like the law scales even came to mind, right? And that the energy that it takes to constantly prove your worth. And I believe you were summa cum laude in your law school.
As Magna, I've barely missed. I was high honors. But even that, I can tell you, I made law review and there was a guy, I still remember this guy's name, who thought that I got onto law review because they needed to have a quota of people of color on law review. And it was not until we were standing in line and they kind of gave us a little card with your honors on it. And he saw it, that he realized for the first time in 3 years of going to law school that actually, no, I was getting A's just like he was. And taking the same tests, doing the work. So yeah, it's there. I try not to let it, I'm aware of it. I'm vocal about it. I talk about it, but I try not to ever have it. I try to use it for good. It's like one of those, I try and turn, it's a little bit of a stoicism thing, but you turn that negative into a positive. That's how I've tried to approach it because again, what can I control? I cannot control what anyone thinks or perceives about my ability, but I can control my work product and what I do and what I bring to the table and whether it's well done, well researched. That's what I can do.
If there's anyone listening, and I'd love to kind of get your final thoughts on this. If there's anyone listening that has a lot on their plate, is hard on themselves, feels like they always have to go above and beyond to have people pay attention to them, and maybe have, athletic goals in the mix too. They just have a lot of competing things and they want to do well. What would be your message to those individuals?
I have done a fair bit of culling of what I do, and I do a lot of asking the question, does this serve me or what I value at any given moment? And you have to recognize that will change day in, day out, year in, year, that it's not always going to be the same. So I'm a big fan of having those honest conversations with yourself about who gets access to you, who gets access to your time, and making choices accordingly as all good adults should. I've had to say goodbye to doing some things, and that's okay. That can be a good thing. So I would start there with kind of figuring out what should be on your plate, because maybe everything that's offered to you shouldn't be on your plate. I know there's a book, was A Year of Saying Yes. Sometimes you need to say no. And sometimes no, what did they say? No is a complete sentence. You don't have to explain. You don't have to apologize. Not interested. Meh. That doesn't look good. And be okay with how that turns out. And I do a fair bit of that now. And sometimes it's so I can be more present for my kids, because they're still, I guess they're the center of the world. I think saying no is a good, healthy thing, and we probably don't do it enough. So I'd start there, and just thinking through what the goals are, and allow yourself to just fall in love with the building blocks. I was reading something. Is it Steve Magnus? Do you like Steve Magnus?
Of course. He's amazing.
You're the reason I found him. I found him just like maybe a day or two ago because of something you shared. And it's like light bulbs going off. I was like, well, this is why we get along, because she likes this guy. I really resonate with what he has to say about understanding that it's not short term, it's long term. And if you're constantly looking for immediate satisfaction, you may never get to the thing that you're ultimately hoping for. I could have imagined a very different version of me that met with you in May, June 2023 and said, I want to run a sub 20-minute 5K. I want to run a sub 140 half marathon. And if and when I didn't get there in a year, I would have, bad Marilyn, walked away and said, well, tried that. That didn't work. And either I would have given up on the goal altogether or decided it was all your fault, Holly. And now it's definitely not how I am. All your fault because I didn't get there. And I'm so thankful that I'm not that way, that I've always been like, no, this is about long term. And there will be long plateaus. There will probably be hiccups along the way. There may be an injury here or there, but it's all going towards this other thing. And it's long-term thinking as opposed to short-term. Candidly, kind of happy I haven't done some of these things in a weird way, because I wonder if I would have said, well, I did that, so I can just stop here, and now I'm, check that off the box. So really it's long-term thinking, prioritizing, cutting out the fat, and sticking with it. It's a lot of perseverance in this.
Yeah. Yes. And I think it's a powerful call to permission to look at what matters, ask yourself what you want, say no to things that don't fit, and persevere towards the things that matter. Work hard, and there's power in progress and the journey, not just the outcomes.
Yeah. And look, and if you travel a lot for work, never stay in a hotel that doesn't have a gym. There are just some non-negotiables. I'm not going to, it's again, the boring, building the structures that allow you to be all the things that you want to be. So I needed to be in Staten Island yesterday. I still wanted to get in an optional run. Pack the clothes, pack the shoes, make sure you're in a place where you can do it. And no excuses. Get it done wherever you are.
Yeah. Just start. Get it done.
Start.
Get organized. Get
a good playlist.
Get a good playlist. Yeah.
Build your
book
or two.
System. Yeah.
The gym has really been serving me well during these cold times when I'm just not, I know I'm not feeling that yet. I'll do it once, maybe twice a week, but have other ways to get it done. Yeah, that assault treadmill is the greatest thing ever.
Yes.
That was they don't pay me anything. They should, but my goodness, a good treadmill.
Yes. And I'm excited to see you tap into more of that potential in 2026 and years in the future. And thank you so much for taking some time and sharing all of your amazing insights and words of wisdom from somebody that lives such a big life and does great work for so many people. I really applaud you and admire you all the time.
You're the best. And Holly always makes people feel just
whatever I feel about myself, I feel like you're like a couple steps above that. That's always good to have in your life too. Someone that's
We need
always
each
rooting
other.
for you. Yeah.
Absolutely.